The stagecoach rattled into Copper Canyon like a ghost from a forgotten era. In a time when railroads had already begun stitching the West together, the Midnight Express line was a relic. The last stagecoach operation still running the treacherous route between Copper Canyon and Fort Defiance. Silas Blackwood watched its arrival from the shadows of the Rusty Nail Saloon, nursing a whiskey and a reputation that had once made him the most feared gunman west of the Mississippi. Now he was just another drifter with too many ghosts and too few prospects. Until the driver of that stagecoach handed him a letter that would change everything. "You Blackwood?" the driver asked, his weathered face betraying no emotion. Silas nodded, accepting the envelope with suspicion. Few people knew where to find him, and fewer still had anything good to say when they did. The letter inside was brief but clear. Jeremiah Hollister, owner of the Midnight Express line and Silas's former partner during their glory days, had died. To the surprise of everyone, especially Silas, Jeremiah had left him the entire stagecoach operation. "Must be some mistake," Silas muttered. "No mistake," the driver replied. "Mr. Hollister was very specific, said you'd try to refuse too, said to tell you it's about the promise made at Devil's Crossing, said you'd understand." Silas felt the blood drain from his face. Devil's Crossing. 15 years ago. The day everything went wrong. The day he'd made a promise he'd never been able to keep. "There's a condition," the driver continued. "You gotta keep the line running for at least 1 year. After that, it's yours to sell or keep as you please." "Why would I want a dying business?" Silas demanded. The driver shrugged. "Mr. Hollister seemed to think you needed it as much as it needs you." The Midnight Express headquarters sat on the outskirts of Copper Canyon, a sprawling compound consisting of a main office, stables, repair shop, and driver's quarters. As Silas approached, he noted the signs of neglect: peeling paint, loose boards, and an air of impending failure. A young woman emerged from the repair shop, wiping grease from her hands. She couldn't have been more than 20, with dark hair cropped short and clothes more suited to a mechanic than a lady. Her expression hardened when she spotted Silas. "You must be the Gunslinger," she said, making the word sound like a curse. "Come to claim your prize?" "You have me at a disadvantage, miss." "Abigail Hollister, though most folks call me Abby." She gestured around the yard. "This was my home, now apparently it's yours, thanks to my grandfather's misplaced loyalty." Silas removed his hat, a gesture of respect he rarely offered anyone. "I didn't ask for this, Miss Hollister. Yet here you are." Her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, assessed him without mercy. "Grandfather said you were the best man he ever rode with. Said you saved his life at Devil's Crossing. Funny, the stories never mentioned you afterward." The accusation hung in the air between them. Silas had no defense to offer. He had abandoned Jeremiah and everyone else after that day, losing himself in whiskey and gunfights across the territories. "I'm sorry about your grandfather," he said finally. "Sorry doesn't keep the Midnight Express running," Abby replied. "We've got a stage leaving for Fort Defiance tomorrow morning. 6 passengers already paid. You planning to honor those tickets, Mr. Blackwood? Or should I start issuing refunds?" The challenge was clear. Silas looked around the yard again, noting details he'd missed initially. The quality of the horses in the stable, the well-maintained coaches despite the shabby buildings, the organized chaos of the repair shop. "You've been running things since your grandfather fell ill," he realized. A flicker of surprise crossed her face. Someone had to. "The drivers respect me well enough, and I can fix anything with wheels." "Then why not continue? Why did Jeremiah leave it to me?" Abby's expression darkened. "Because the Midnight Express is dying, Mr. Blackwood. The railroad will reach Copper Canyon within a year. We're being squeezed from all sides. Bandits on the trails, competitors undercutting our prices, and now the Copper Canyon Mining Company trying to buy our land." "For what purpose?" "They claim they need our water rights for their new processing facility. Offered grandfather a pittance." She studied him with renewed intensity. He refused to sell. A week later, he was dead. The doctor called it heart failure. I call it suspicious timing. Silas felt a familiar tension building, the instinct that had kept him alive through countless confrontations. "You think he was murdered?" "I think powerful men get what they want in this territory, one way or another." Abby wiped her hands on a rag with deliberate care. Grandfather thought you were someone who could stand against them. I think you're just another gunslinger past his prime, looking for one last score before the West forgets you entirely. The assessment stung precisely because it contained more truth than Silas cared to admit. You don't know me, Miss Hollister. I know your type, she countered. And I know the Midnight Express needs more than a fast gun to survive. It needs someone who believes in what we built here. Before Silas could respond, a commotion erupted from the main office. A boy of about 12 burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. Miss Abby, they found something in the South Canyon. One of the drivers. He stopped abruptly upon noticing Silas, his expression shifting from excitement to wariness. It's all right, Charlie, Abby assured him. This is Mr. Blackwood. Apparently, he's our new owner. Charlie's eyes widened. The Silas Blackwood, the one who shot down the entire Barton gang at Willow Creek? Stories grow taller with each telling, Silas said dryly. What did they find in the canyon? Charlie glanced at Abby, who nodded permission. A cave, sir. Hidden behind a waterfall. Jackson found it while looking for a stray horse. Says there's markings inside. Old ones. Indian pictographs? Abby asked. No, ma'am. Jackson says they're Spanish, and there's a cross carved into the rock, a big one. Silas and Abby exchanged glances, both recognizing the significance. Spanish explorers had passed through this territory centuries ago, seeking gold and converting natives. Legends of lost missions and hidden treasures had persisted for generations. Where's Jackson now? Silas asked. That's the thing, sir, Charlie replied, his voice dropping. He rode straight to the mining company office. Figured they'd pay good money for the information. Abby's face hardened. Damn fool. If there's anything valuable in that cave, the company will claim it's on their property. Is it? Silas asked. No. The South Canyon has been Midnight Express territory since my grandfather established the line. It's where we graze our horses during the dry season. She grabbed her jacket from a nearby hook. We need to get there before the mining company sends men. Silas found himself following her lead, an unusual position for a man accustomed to giving orders rather than taking them. You seem mighty interested in some old cave drawings. Abby paused, weighing how much to reveal. Grandfather used to tell stories about the lost mission of San Miguel de Los Angeles. Said the Spanish built it somewhere in these canyons to hide something valuable from their own government. Gold? Something worth more than gold to the right people. She checked the revolver at her hip, a gesture so natural it suggested long practice. Grandfather spent years searching for it. If he was right, and if that cave is what I think it is, then the mining company's interest in this land makes more sense, Silas finished. They're not after water rights. They're after whatever the Spanish left behind. The South Canyon lay 2 hours' ride from the Midnight Express compound. Silas, Abby, and Charlie traveled in tense silence, pushing their horses as fast as the rugged terrain allowed. As they rode, Silas noted how the landscape changed, from dusty plains to increasingly lush vegetation, suggesting hidden water sources beneath the seemingly barren ground. Your grandfather chose this route carefully, Silas observed. Natural water, good grazing, defensible positions. Abby nodded. He wasn't just a stagecoach man. Before that, he was a scout for the army. Knew this territory better than anyone. Except maybe the natives. He learned from them, she acknowledged. Had good relations with the local tribes. They respected him because he respected their ways. They reached the waterfall as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the canyon. The cascade wasn't large, just a 30-foot ribbon of water spilling over a rock ledge, but it created enough mist and noise to effectively conceal the narrow opening behind it. No sign of the mining company yet, Charlie reported after scouting the area. They'll come, Abby said grimly. Jackson may be loyal to the Express, but he's not above selling information when money's tight. Silas studied the approach to the waterfall. Defensible position. Limited access. Your grandfather would have appreciated that. You think he knew about this place? Abby asked, surprised. I think Jeremiah Hollister didn't do anything without purpose, Silas replied, including leaving his business to a washed-up gunslinger. They secured their horses out of sight and approached the waterfall on foot, The path behind the cascading water was treacherous but passable, leading to a cave entrance that would be nearly impossible to spot without precise directions. Inside, the temperature dropped noticeably. Charlie lit a lantern, revealing a tunnel that showed signs of both natural formation and human modification. Crude steps had been cut into steeper sections, and in places, the walls had been widened to allow easier passage. "Someone went to a lot of trouble," Silas noted, running his hand along the smoothed stone. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, where the evidence of human presence became undeniable. Carved into the far wall was an elaborate cross, at least 6 feet tall, surrounded by Spanish inscriptions. Beneath it, stone benches suggested the space had once served as a small chapel. "San Miguel de los Angeles," Abby whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "Grandfather was right." Silas examined the inscriptions, translating the faded Spanish as best he could. "It says this mission was established in 1687 by Father Esteban Dominguez, under orders from—" He paused, frowning. "Not the church, not the crown. It says, under orders from those who guard the truth." "What truth?" Charlie asked, his young face illuminated by the lantern's glow. Before anyone could speculate, Silas's attention was drawn to a section of wall that didn't match the rest. "There's another chamber beyond this one." The hidden doorway was ingeniously designed, a section of wall that pivoted when pressure was applied to a specific stone. Beyond lay a smaller room that took their breath away. Unlike the austere chapel, this chamber contained evidence of wealth and purpose. A stone altar held a tarnished silver cross and chalice. Wooden chests, their contents long since decayed, lined one wall. But most striking was a large map carved into the stone floor, a detailed rendering of the surrounding territory, with the mission marked by an inlaid silver cross. "It's a map to something," Abby realized, kneeling to examine it more closely. Silas joined her, his experienced eyes noting details that others might miss. "Not to something, from something. Look, these lines radiating from the mission, they're not trails, they're boundaries." "Boundaries to what?" "A silver deposit," came a new voice from the chamber entrance. "The richest vein in the territory, if our geologists are correct." They turned to find 3 men entering the hidden room. The leader, impeccably dressed despite the rugged surroundings, smiled without warmth. "Miss Hollister, how convenient to find you here. Saves me the trouble of explaining why your Stagecoach line is now sitting on property owned by the Copper Canyon Mining Company." "Maxwell Thornton," Abby said, her voice cold. "This land belongs to the Midnight Express, has for 20 years. "A regrettable misunderstanding," Thornton replied. "Your grandfather's claim had certain irregularities. My lawyers have already filed the necessary paperwork to correct this oversight." His gaze shifted to Silas. "And you must be the infamous Silas Blackwood. Your reputation precedes you." Silas remained expressionless, though his hand had instinctively moved closer to his revolver. Funny how these irregularities only surfaced after Jeremiah died. "Business is full of unfortunate timing," Thornton said with a shrug. "Now, I'm willing to be reasonable. You can gather your personal belongings from the Midnight Express compound. We'll even provide transportation to the nearest railroad station." "And if we refuse?" Abby challenged. Thornton's smile thinned. "Miss Hollister, surely you understand your position. This discovery changes everything. The silver deposits this map reveals are worth millions. The Midnight Express was always just a means to an end, a way to control this land until we could confirm what lay beneath it." "You killed my grandfather," Abby accused, her hand now openly resting on her revolver. "Your grandfather died of natural causes," Thornton replied smoothly, "though I admit, our negotiations may have placed undue stress on his heart." The tension in the chamber was palpable. Silas assessed their options with the cold calculation of a man who had faced death many times. 2 armed men flanked Thornton, both wearing the confident expressions of experienced gunmen. In the confined space, with Charlie to protect, the odds weren't favorable. "The boy leaves first," Silas said quietly. "He has no part in this." Something in his tone made Thornton hesitate. The legendary Blackwood, showing concern for a child? How unexpected. He gestured to his men. "Mr. Reynolds, escort the boy outside. No harm comes to him." As Charlie was led away, casting worried glances back at Abby, Silas shifted slightly, positioning himself between Abby and the remaining threats. You won't get away with this, Abby insisted. People know we came here. The drivers, the passengers, they'll ask questions. Questions that will be answered with a tragic tale of bandits attacking your stagecoach line, Thornton replied. A common enough occurrence in these parts, especially with the notorious Silas Blackwood involved. The implication was clear. They would be killed, and Blackwood would be blamed. A fitting end for a gunslinger with a bloody past. What happened next occurred with the speed that had made Silas Blackwood a legend. As Thornton reached inside his coat, presumably for a weapon, Silas drew and fired in one fluid motion. The mining magnate crumpled, a look of genuine surprise on his face as he clutched his shoulder. The remaining gunman managed to get off a wild shot before Silas's second bullet found its mark. The confined space amplified the gunfire to deafening levels, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. "We need to move," Silas said, already pulling Abby toward the exit. "There will be more of them." Outside, they found Charlie hiding behind a boulder, shaking but unharmed. The man who had escorted him lay unconscious nearby, evidence of either surprising courage or foolishness from the boy. "He tried to tie me up," Charlie explained, his voice quavering. "I hit him with a rock." "Good lad," Silas approved, checking the horizon for approaching riders. "But Thornton's men will be looking for us soon. We need to reach town before they can cut us off." The ride back to Copper Canyon became a desperate race against both pursuing miners and the setting sun. They took a different route, a longer but less exposed trail that Abby knew from her grandfather's teachings. "What happens when we reach town?" she asked as they paused to rest the horses. "Thornton has influence with the local law." Silas considered their options. "We need proof of Jeremiah's legitimate claim to the land, and evidence of Thornton's involvement in his death." "The deed is in the safe at the office," Abby said. "But proving Thornton had anything to do with grandfather's death will be nearly impossible." "Maybe not," Charlie interjected. Both adults turned to him in surprise. "Mr. Hollister gave me something to keep safe before he died. Said it was insurance." From inside his shirt, the boy withdrew a small journal. "It's all in here. Names, dates, threats. Everything the mining company did to try to force him to sell." Silas leafed through the journal, his expression darkening. Jeremiah was thorough. This documents years of harassment, sabotage, and finally direct threats from Thornton himself. "Why give it to Charlie?" Abby wondered. "Because no one would suspect the orphan boy who sweeps the stables," Charlie said with a hint of pride. "Mr. Hollister took me in when no one else would. Said I had good eyes and better ears." Silas nodded with newfound respect for both the boy and his old partner's foresight. "We'll take this to Judge Harmon in Fort Defiance. He's outside Thornton's influence and has no love for mining companies pushing out smaller operations." "That's a 2-day journey," Abby pointed out. "Thornton's men will be watching the roads." A slow smile spread across Silas's face, the first genuine one since his arrival. "Then we'll just have to use the one thing we have that they don't." "What's that?" Charlie asked. "The finest stagecoach line in the territory, with the best damn driver I've ever seen," Silas replied, nodding to Abby. "Your grandfather taught you to handle a team, didn't he?" Abby's answering smile held a fierce pride. 6 horses at full gallop through Apache Pass without spilling a passenger's coffee. That's what the Midnight Express promises, and that's what we deliver. They reached the compound after nightfall, approaching cautiously. As expected, Thornton's men had already arrived, 4 riders watching the main buildings from a distance. "They're waiting for us," Abby whispered as they observed from a hidden vantage point. "Good," Silas replied. "Means they don't know about the back entrance to the stables." Charlie's eyes widened. "The drainage tunnel? But that's barely big enough for a person to crawl through." "Big enough for you?" Silas confirmed. "Think you can reach the stables unseen and prepare the fastest team we have?" The boy nodded solemnly. "Yes, sir. Which coach should I ready?" Silas and Abby exchanged glances. "The Midnight Special," she decided. "Grandfather's personal coach. Reinforced frame, lighter weight, built for speed rather than comfort." As Charlie slipped away to execute his part of the plan, Silas and Abby discussed their next move. "We'll need a distraction," she said. "Something to draw them away from the main yard long enough for us to get the coach moving." Silas checked his ammunition. "I can provide that." But once we start, there's no turning back. Thornton's men won't hesitate to kill us all. They'll try, Abby corrected, her determination evident. But the Midnight Express hasn't failed to complete a run in 20 years. I don't intend to break that record tonight. The plan unfolded with precision, born of desperation. Silas created a diversion by setting fire to a remote storage shed, drawing Thornton's watchmen away from their positions. Meanwhile, Abby slipped into the main office to retrieve crucial documents from the safe. When they converged on the stables, they found Charlie had exceeded expectations. The Midnight Special, a sleek black coach with minimal ornamentation save for a silver crescent moon on its doors, stood ready with 6 of their finest horses, harnessed and eager. I added extra ammunition under the seats, Charlie reported proudly, and filled the water barrels. There's food in the storage compartment, too. You're a natural stagecoach man, Silas told him, helping Abby secure their precious cargo, Jeremiah's journal and the legal documents proving their claim to the land. The moment of departure came sooner than expected, when shouts indicated their diversion had been discovered. Abby took the reins with confident hands, while Silas positioned himself on the rear guard platform, rifle ready. "Hold tight," Abby called as she released the brake and signaled the team. The horses surged forward, powerful muscles straining as the coach lurched into motion. They burst from the stables at full gallop, taking Thornton's returning men by surprise. Gunfire erupted, bullets splintering wood and whistling past as Silas returned fire with calculated precision. 2 riders fell before the others could seek cover. "Eastern Road," Silas shouted over the thundering hooves and gunfire. "They'll expect us to take the main route to Fort Defiance." Abby nodded, guiding the team with expert hands through a sharp turn that sent the coach tilting precariously on 2 wheels before righting itself. Charlie, secured inside, let out a whoop that was equal parts terror and exhilaration. The Eastern Road was less traveled and more treacherous, a winding trail that skirted the edge of Copper Canyon before eventually connecting with the Fort Defiance route miles beyond where any ambush would be waiting. It would add hours to their journey, but offered their best chance of avoiding Thornton's men. As they left Copper Canyon behind, the full moon illuminated their path with silver light. The coach maintained a punishing pace, the horses responding to Abby's commands with the trust born of long familiarity. "Your grandfather would be proud," Silas told her during a brief pause to rest the team. "You're every bit the driver he was." Abby's expression softened momentarily. "He talked about you sometimes. Said you were the best man he ever knew before the darkness took you." Silas looked away, uncomfortable with both the praise and the assessment. Jeremiah always saw the best in people, even when it wasn't there. "Is that why you left, after Devil's Crossing?" The question hung between them, unavoidable now. Silas sighed, the weight of 15 years of regret in the sound. "We were transporting a payroll, Jeremiah, me, and 3 others, ambushed by the Cortez gang. Your grandfather took a bullet meant for me." He paused, the memory still vivid. "I got him to safety, promised I'd come back with help. But by the time I returned with a doctor, the gang had taken everything, the money, our supplies, even our horses." "But you saved his life," Abby pointed out. "And then I disappeared," Silas admitted. "Couldn't face him after failing like that. The great Silas Blackwood, outdraw."